It was December 23rd, 2024. I scowled, my thumb flying across my phone screen, refreshing the Amtrak app over and over. Every single train was sold out. The only thing available was a single seat on the 3:10 a.m. train, the Night Owl 368. I didn't hesitate. I booked it. With no time to waste, I threw my stuff in a suitcase and headed straight for Union Station. Even in the dead of night, the terminal was a sea of people, a chaotic mass of bodies all trying to get home before Christmas Eve. I pushed through the crowd and managed to board the train with just 10 minutes to spare. I had just settled into my seat when a middle-aged woman with a 6 or 7-year-old boy in tow stopped next to me. "Get up. These are our seats." Her tone was hostile. I pulled out my digital ticket on my phone, checking and rechecking the seat number. I was in the right place. "Sorry, but this is my seat," I said. Hearing that, her voice immediately became shrill. "Ever heard of first come, first served? I take my son to get a bottle of water, and you steal our seats," she screeched. "He's just a little boy. He can't sit by himself. What's so wrong with a mother and son wanting to sit together? It's not going to kill you to move." Her shouting attracted stares from the other passengers. If she'd been polite, I might have actually switched. But her entitled, guilt-tripping attitude just pushed all my buttons. I let out a cold laugh and gave her a grim smile. "You know, if this train were to derail and we all burned to death, fused to our seats, your family would come looking for your bodies based on the seat numbers. They'd find my charred bones in your seat, take my ashes home, put them on the mantle, and pray to me every night. Would that make you happy?" Then I put on my noise-canceling headphones, closed my eyes, and ignored her. The woman practically exploded with rage, standing there and cursing me out while her kids started making faces and pretending to spit at me. Before long, a conductor came over to see what the commotion was about. The moment the woman saw his uniform, she acted like she'd found her backup, grabbing his arm and launching into a tearful, fake story about how I was disrespecting my elders and had cursed at her with vicious words. Thankfully, the conductor was professional. After getting the real story, he calmly led the woman and her son away, promising to find them a pair of seats together elsewhere. The little drama ended quickly. A few minutes later, a quiet, timid-looking girl was moved into the seat next to me. The train departed on time. It was the middle of the night, so the aisle lights were dimmed. Outside the window, the world was pitch black. To get passengers into the holiday spirit, the small TVs hanging from the ceiling were playing a marathon of classic Christmas movies. But the satellite signal must have been weak because the screen kept flickering with static, which was more unsettling than festive. The snores rising and falling around me were like a lullaby, and my eyelids started to feel heavy. Just as I was about to drift off, the car jolted violently, and all the lights flashed on at full brightness. The sudden change woke everyone up. The car instantly filled with a confused chatter as people tried to figure out what was going on. Ding dong. The intercom crackled to life. "Good evening, passengers, and welcome aboard the Night Owl, Train 368. Due to an unexpected mechanical failure, this train will be making a temporary stop for inspection in 5 minutes. On behalf of the entire crew, I deeply apologize for the inconvenience." As soon as the announcement ended, the car erupted in groans of frustration. The man in front of me, probably wanting to get more information, pressed his call button several times, but no one answered. He started muttering curses under his breath. Then, the intercom came on again. This time, the voice was different, colder, robotic. "We will now announce the rules for this service. All passengers are required to comply with the following regulations. 1. The inspection stop will last for 60 minutes. During this time, all passengers must be seated in the exact seat assigned to them on their ticket. Do not move about the cabin. 2. All window shades must be pulled down and remain down until the train resumes normal operation. 3. At 4 a.m., we will distribute complimentary pretzels and bottled water. Only accept these items from a crew member in a blue uniform. Do not purchase any food or drink from a crew member in a red uniform. 4. The song Jingle Bell Rock will not be played in this car. If you hear this song, immediately hide in the nearest restroom and use the emergency call button. A crew member will assist you. 5. Fireworks, sparklers, or other flammable items are not permitted on this train. If you see any such items, report them to a crew member at once. 6. Do not exit the train during the stop. No new passengers will be boarding. If you see people getting on the train, ignore them. Do not accept anything they offer you. The entire crew of the Night Owl wishes you a Merry Christmas. The car went silent for a beat, then exploded into a cacophony of angry shouts. What the hell is this? Some kind of prank? You gotta be kidding me. I have to get home. This is insane. I'm filing a complaint. I'm suing you people. Just then, a conductor in a crisp blue uniform emerged from the back of the car. He stood in the aisle, a polished, artificial smile on his face. Ladies and gentlemen, we are approaching the stop. Please return to your seats and lower your window shades. He repeated the instruction 3 times, then turned and walked back to the crew cabin, completely ignoring the man who was still furiously pressing the call button and shouting after him. I listened to the chaos around me, but stayed quiet in my seat, still trying to process what was happening. The girl who had been sitting next to me got up and hesitantly approached the mother and son from earlier. Mom? The announcement said, we have to be in our own seats. I think we should switch back. The woman shot her a dismissive glance and didn't move. The train's speed was decreasing. The automated voice came over the intercom again. We are now approaching the stop. All passengers, please return to your assigned seats. It repeated the message once more. The train was crawling now. I could feel it was about to come to a complete halt. The girl was getting frantic. Ma'am, please. We're about to stop. I need to get back to my seat. The woman just hugged her son tighter and shrieked. My child is scared. He needs me. Besides, you agreed to switch. This is my seat now. I'm not moving. Their argument drew the attention of several other passengers who stood up to get a better look. Screech. The train stopped. The looky-loos who had been standing instantly dropped back into their seats. Outside, it was pure darkness. The cabin lights reflected our own faces back at us in the glass. All I could make out was that we seemed to be stopped in the middle of nowhere. Remembering the rules, I leaned over and pulled down my window shade. Awa. Oh God, my son, what the F? Gag. A blood-curdling scream erupted from the front of the car, followed by the sound of a woman wailing. Since I was in a window seat, I could only peek through the gap between the seats in front of me. All I saw was a pool of dark, reddish-black liquid spreading out from a seat, dripping onto the floor and joining a larger puddle. The mother was screaming, clutching a child's empty jacket. The quiet girl who had taken her seat was gone, too. Only her coat lay on the floor, slowly soaking up the viscous fluid. What was happening? Did they just melt? Open the doors. I want off this train. Some of the passengers who had seen it all happen scrambled into the aisle, pushing and shoving, trying to get out. The car descended into pure chaos. A mob of people clawed at the train doors, trying to pry them open. A few others ran to the crew cabin, pounding on the door and demanding answers. The rest of us just stood there, dazed and confused. A few seconds later, more screams echoed through the car. A thick metallic smell, the smell of blood, filled the air. I looked down and saw the dark red liquid oozing toward my feet. Get back to your seats. Everyone, get back to your seats, someone yelled. Those of us with any sense left scrambled back to our assigned spots. But a few, completely overcome by panic, kept running for the doors. Without exception, every single one of them dissolved into a puddle of gore. After the chaos subsided, a horrifying quiet fell over the car, punctuated only by a few muffled sobs. Suddenly, the mother, her eyes wide with madness, charged at me. This is your fault. If you had just moved, my baby would still be alive. You're going to pay for this. She lunged, grabbing my arm and yanking me with terrifying strength. I stumbled, pulled halfway out of my seat. My mind went blank with panic, but instinct took over. I gripped the armrest with one hand and kicked out at her with my free leg. She was freakishly strong. I'm a guy, and I couldn't break her grip. Time seemed to slow down. I didn't know how long you could be out of your seat before you broke the rule. Seconds? A minute? Just then, a guy from a seat across the aisle stood up. He put a finger to his lips, signaling me to be quiet, then silently lifted his heavy backpack and swung it with all his might, smashing it into the side of the woman's head. The pressure on my arm loosened. I ripped myself free, fell back into my seat, and fumbled to buckle the seatbelt. The next second, right in front of me, the woman melted like cotton candy in the rain, collapsing into a heap of bloody sludge. The shock of seeing it happen so close was overwhelming. My hand was shaking, My legs felt like jelly. I had barely escaped. I shakily mumbled a thank you to the guy who helped me. He just gave me a stoic nod. After a few minutes, I pulled out my phone, trying to text my family. No signal. I tried calling 911. An automated message. The number you have dialed is not in service. I took a few deep breaths, tried to calm down, and think. The first rule said not to move about the cabin. A sliver of hope sparked in my mind. If I just stayed in my seat for the full hour until the train started moving again, would I be safe? I checked the time on my phone. 3:45 a.m., 45 minutes to go. I closed my eyes, hoping I could just sleep through it, but the fear kept my mind racing. I couldn't relax. I stared blankly at the Christmas movie on the overhead screen, and finally, the clock ticked over to 4 a.m. Click, clack, click, clack. The sound of high heels came from the back of the car. I turned to see a female crew member in a blue uniform emerge from the crew cabin. She was pushing a small cart stacked with bags of pretzels and bottled water, handing them out seat by seat. Some people, too terrified to eat, refused. When she got to me, I thought for a second and then took the offering. You never know, it might be useful later. The crew member stopped at the row 2 seats ahead of me and turned to a man on the left. Sir, please lower your window shade. No, it feels stuffy, the man said dismissively. The crew member repeated her request, her voice still gentle. Sir, please lower your shade. He ignored her. She asked a third time. This time, her voice was completely different, a harsh, grating screech like nails on a chalkboard. The sound was agonizing. Passengers all around the car, myself included, clapped our hands over our ears. The man's reaction was even more extreme. He clutched his head, groaning in pain, and shakily reached for the shade. The moment it clicked into place, the horrible noise stopped. The crew member turned away from him as if nothing had happened and continued down the aisle. A gush of blood erupted from the man's nose and mouth, splattering the seat back in front of him. He slumped over, lifeless. The woman next to him began to sob, cradling his body. He was dead. Click, snap, click. Several more window shades around the car were quickly pulled down. It was only then that people truly understood. Every single rule had to be followed. If you didn't, you died. The clock ticked to 4:15 a.m. The car was eerily silent, the only sound coming from the holiday movie on the TV. I guess people were too scared to talk, worried they might break a rule they hadn't paid enough attention to. Ding dong. A faint announcement sound came from outside the train. I pressed my ear to the window, trying to listen. All passengers for the night owl, train 368, service to New York, now boarding. Please board promptly. A chill went down my spine. I distinctly remembered seeing nothing but wilderness outside when I pulled the shade down. There was no station, and Rule 6 specifically said no other passengers would be getting on. So what, exactly, was about to board this train? I could hear the faint, shuffling sound of footsteps outside. I couldn't resist. I cracked the shade open just a tiny sliver. Through the gap, I could see them, dozens of figures standing on the barren, frozen ground, all dragging luggage. As I watched, one of them suddenly bent down, its face appearing right in the crack of the window. It smiled at me. Before I could pull back, our eyes met. Even in the darkness, I saw it clearly. Its face was like a department store mannequin's, with a creepy, fixed grin and glowing red eyes that stared at me without blinking. The mechanical smile made my blood run cold. I slammed the shade shut, my heart hammering against my ribs. I just had to hope that whatever it was, it wouldn't notice me once it was on board. Those things outside were definitely not human. HSSSSS. The train doors hissed open, and a wave of frigid air swept through the car as they boarded. They acted as if they didn't see the pools of blood or the empty, stained seats, and simply took the vacant spots. I counted. 11 of them boarded our car. I scanned their faces. The mannequin-like one I saw through the window wasn't among them. For a second, I wondered if I had just imagined it, a hallucination brought on by fear. A bald man sat down in the aisle seat next to me. He immediately turned and greeted me with a friendly smile. I remembered the rule, ignore them, and quickly turned away, putting my headphones on and pretending I couldn't hear him. The man didn't seem offended. He just shrugged and started arranging his luggage. Ding dong. The intercom crackled to life again. The train inspection is complete. We will now depart. This train will run express to the final destination with no further stops. The remaining rules will now be announced. 7. Restrooms may be used while the train is in motion. Each passenger is limited to 3 uses. Each use must not exceed 5 minutes. 8. This is a non-smoking train. For your health and the health of others, please do not smoke. 9. Tickets cannot be purchased on board. A crew member will begin inspecting tickets after departure. Please have your tickets ready. 10. The train will arrive at its final destination, New York Penn Station, at 7:30 a.m. All passengers must disembark at that time. The entire crew of the Night Owl wishes you a Merry Christmas. The train lurched forward, slowly picking up speed. The car was suddenly alive with noise again. Some people cheered, thinking the worst was over and they'd be home soon. Others, realizing it wasn't finished, huddled together, whispering about the new rules. I sat frozen in my seat, a cold sweat breaking out on my skin. Rule 9. A crew member would be inspecting tickets. My final destination wasn't New York. My ticket was for a stop in Pennsylvania. That meant my ticket was invalid. If the conductor found out I was dead, then I thought of Rule 7. Each restroom trip couldn't exceed 5 minutes. If I hid in the bathroom during the ticket inspection, could I avoid Rule 9? I kept glancing back toward the connection between cars. The moment I saw a flash of a blue uniform, I shot up from my seat, carefully stepping over the sleeping bald man next to me and hurrying toward the restroom. I wasn't the only one with this idea. A dozen other people, all without tickets to the final station, were rushing for the same small bathroom. Luckily, I was the closest. I was the first one inside. Right behind me were the guy who had saved me, Ethan, a young woman, Chloe, and a middle-aged man, Mark. The train restroom was tiny. Mark, the last one in, barely squeezed inside before quickly locking the door. The people left outside started pounding on it. Bang, bang, bang. The frantic pounding felt like it was hammering directly on my heart. My vision started to swim. Chloe noticed how pale I was and shifted slightly, giving me room at the small sink. I splashed some cold water on my face, which helped. I mumbled a thank you. The sound of high heels walked past our door, and the pounding outside instantly stopped. We quickly exchanged names. The guy who saved me was Ethan. The girl, Chloe. The older man, Mark. It turned out our seats were all near each other. Compared to our frantic panic, Ethan was unervingly calm. He cracked the door open a tiny bit, peering out at the crew member checking tickets. I remembered looking at my phone when I went in. It was 4:55 a.m. Now it was 4:57. We'd been in here for 2 minutes, but the conductor had only made it past 4 rows. She was still a ways from our seats. Mark seemed incredibly nervous, constantly wiping sweat from his forehead and checking his watch. Hey, relax, I whispered. There's still time. She's moving pretty fast. I was trying to reassure him, but honestly, I wasn't sure myself. The seconds ticked by. She was 2 rows away from our seats now. I glanced at my watch. 1 minute left. Suddenly, Ethan gestured for us to look. The 3 of us crowded around the door crack and saw something horrifying. The crew member lifted a woman from her window seat. Then, like pulling a weed, she grabbed the woman's neck with one hand and her body with the other and brutally ripped her head off. Blood sprayed everywhere. On the floor, the seat, the passenger next to her, who promptly fainted. Screams filled the car. Chloe took one look, turned white, and started dry heaving into the sink. Mark's legs gave out, and he collapsed onto the floor next to the toilet. I felt sick to my stomach. If I hadn't hidden in here, would that have been me? 30 seconds left. The light in the restroom began to flicker. Bam, bam, bam. A violent banging started on the small window. I forced my head to turn. Several bloody handprints were smeared across the glass, and small cracks were starting to form under the assault. We were running out of time. The restroom was turning on us. Ethan, who had been silent until now, spoke in a low, urgent voice. I timed it. The people who broke the first rule, they had about 30 seconds from when they left their seat to when they died. The conductor is checking our row now. That'll take about 20 seconds. We leave now, hide by the luggage rack. The second she passes, we run for our seats. We'll have 10 seconds. Go! As he spoke, the cracks on the window spiderwebbed. A withered, black hand shot out of the toilet bowl, clawing at us. There was no time to think. Ethan threw the door open and led the charge toward the overhead luggage compartment. Mark was frozen in fear on the floor. I shoved Chloe ahead of me, then turned back, grabbed Mark by the arm, and hauled him out of the restroom. The instant we were both out, the restroom behind us returned to normal, as if the flickering lights and monster hand had been a shared hallucination. Thanks to the noise of the train, our escape hadn't drawn any attention. The conductor was now checking the ticket of the bald man in the seat next to mine. Incredibly, the guy was still asleep. Sir, wake up. Ticket inspection. I need to see your ticket. The conductor repeated herself twice before the man stirred, slowly and groggily fumbling for his ticket. Every second felt like an eternity. We were all burning with anxiety, but there was nothing we could do. 15, 14, 13. Finally, she finished with him and moved to the next row. That was our cue. We crouched low and sprinted for our seats. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. At the last possible second, I stumbled and half-crawled over the bald man, collapsing back into my seat. Whoa, little brother, what's the rush? Could have waited for me to stand up, the man said loudly. His voice made several people turn around and look at me, including some of the new passengers who didn't have tickets. Back there are people hiding back there. They don't have tickets either. A skinny man suddenly shrieked, jumping to his feet and pointing in my direction. Tears and snot streamed down his face. Go get them. It's over, I thought. He's selling me out. My heart sank. This is it. But the conductor ignored him. She simply turned to the man with her professional smile and asked politely, Sir, your ticket, please? The skinny man just stood there, trembling and muttering. Don't kill me. Please don't kill me. I don't have a ticket. No, wait. Yes, I have a ticket, crack. It was the sound of bone snapping. The man's head was no longer attached to his body. Daddy, I'm scared. Wah, mommy. A little girl's cries were piercing in the suddenly quiet car. Her father, trying to protect his family, lunged at the conductor while she was checking the other side of the aisle. He was decapitated before he even got close. His wife clutched their crying daughter, shrinking into her seat. The conductor walked right past them, and the crying stopped. Finally, the conductor moved on to the next car. A cabin that once held over 70 people now held less than 40. Protesting, crying, begging, bribery, none of it worked. It was a one-sided slaughter. The small space was thick with the coppery smell of blood. Severed limbs and body parts were scattered everywhere, a grotesque testament to the rules. The car fell into a dead silence again, the only sound the rhythmic clatter of the wheels on the track. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the sound of frantic footsteps. A man with a pained expression was doing a desperate, cross-legged shuffle toward the restroom. You'd have to be at your absolute breaking point to willingly go in there now. Click. The lock engaged. I glanced back. The occupancy indicator above the door switched from a green vacant to a red digital timer. The 5-minute countdown had begun. I wasn't too concerned about whether he'd follow the rules. I just wanted to take advantage of the quiet to close my eyes for a minute to try and save some energy. Bang, bang, bang. Help. Let me out. Help me. I had barely closed my eyes when a terrifying scream and the sound of violent banging jolted me awake. The inhuman noises were coming from the restroom. The shriek was like that of a rooster having its neck wrung, and it got everyone's attention. Curiosity is a powerful instinct. Everyone turned to stare at the restroom door, which was shaking so violently it looked like it would fly off its hinges. The commotion was so loud it even brought the blue-uniformed crew member back out. Open the door. Please, let me out. Help, the man inside wailed, his voice growing hoarse and weak. The crew member did nothing, simply standing motionless in front of the door. Seeing this, no one else dared to intervene. After what we'd witnessed, everyone was terrified of her. No one was going to risk their own life. The man's cries for help faded, replaced by the gurgling sound of a flushing toilet. Whoosh, gurgle, gurgle. It sounded like the toilet was clogged, then cleared. With 45 seconds left on the clock, the sound stopped. The restroom is now available for use, the crew member announced. Then, without another word, she turned and went back to the crew cabin. HSSS. The restroom door slid open. The inside was spotless, but the man was gone. A faint, telltale whiff of cigarette smoke drifted past my nose. He had broken rule number 8. Maybe he never paid attention to the rules, or maybe it was just a force of habit. Either way, dying over something so simple was just plain stupid. His disappearance barely caused a ripple among the survivors. Compared to the other deaths, this one felt like he'd brought it on himself. The time was now 6 a.m. I hadn't slept all night, and my eyes were bloodshot and heavy. But I didn't dare fall asleep. I pinched my thigh hard, trying to stay awake. Rattle, rattle. The sound of a cart approached. Breakfast sandwiches. Anyone need a breakfast sandwich? I looked up and felt a chill go through me. It was a crew member in a red uniform. The survivors remembered rule number 3 and ignored her. But the passengers who had boarded during the stop looked at her cart like a pack of starving wolves. They lined up, each took a wrapped sandwich, and went back to their seats. As they unwrapped them, a strange, delicious aroma filled the car. It was an intoxicating scent, like an invisible hand tickling your senses, playing with your nerves. The smell caused a stir. I could hear people sniffing the air all around me. It smelled so good. I want a bite. I found myself staring at the sandwich in the bald man's hand. Here, brother, have one. My treat, the man said, his face twisted into a sinister grin, his voice dripping with temptation. The red-uniformed crew member held a sandwich out to me. Don't take it. Ethan's sharp voice snapped me out of the trance. I had almost broken 2 rules at once. I quickly turned away, pulled out the pretzels and water I'd received earlier, and started shoving them in my mouth, trying to fight the overwhelming craving for the sandwich. The crew member whipped her head around to glare at Ethan, her eyes full of venom. But she didn't say anything, eventually withdrawing the sandwich she'd offered me. The bald man just muttered, "Your loss," and started eating. I kept my head down, focusing on my dry pretzels, when I suddenly realized something. The smell was gone. I took a few deep breaths. It was definitely gone. My senses hadn't just gotten used to it. I looked around. Other people were still entranced by the aroma, everyone except for me and Ethan. An idea flashed in my mind. What was different? Was it the pretzels and water? I typed out my theory on my phone and showed it to Ethan. He nodded. Don't eat the sandwiches. Eat the pretzels and water. I yelled. My shout immediately drew the attention of the red-uniformed crew member. She dropped her cart and charged at me. Her pretty face twisted into a grotesque mask. A black fog clouded her eyes. Her skin began to peel away like old paint. A long, forked tongue, dripping with a stringy red fluid, slithered out from a gaping mouth lined with jagged teeth and licked at her own decaying face. Pure terror seized me, and I started to shake uncontrollably. But I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. The monstrous crew member stared at me for a long moment, then turned away with a hateful snarl. Because I hadn't broken any rules, she couldn't execute me. The passengers who heard my warning began frantically eating their own complimentary snacks. As they ate, their craving for the sandwiches slowly subsided. But a few who hadn't taken the free food were now filled with regret. They had to rely on sheer willpower to resist. The supernatural aroma continued to assault their senses. I can't take it anymore, a man screamed. He threw himself at the cart, grabbed a sandwich, and started stuffing it into his mouth. As he chewed, a horrifying transformation began. He started to melt. The parts of his body that touched the food, his mouth, his fingers, dissolved into a putrid slurry. Then his esophagus, his stomach. Even as he was dissolving, he didn't stop eating. He used the bloody stump of his hand to keep shoving the sandwich into the melted ruin of his face. 2 minutes later, he was gone, replaced by a pile of reddish-white sludge in front of the food cart. The gruesome sight was enough to snap the others out of their trance. They did whatever they could to stay sane, digging their nails into their legs, slapping their own faces. One man even pulled out a lighter and burned his own arm. Anything to stay focused. Anyone else want a sandwich? The crew member asked. No one answered. She showed no reaction. She slowly began to push her cart toward the next car. As she passed the piles of melted flesh and dismembered bodies, she scooped them up, one by one, and placed them on the cart. Impossibly, the small cart held all of them. Once she had collected all the remains, the crew member finally left our car. 1 more hour. Almost there. Almost there. I kept repeating it to myself like a mantra. The constant attacks had left me utterly exhausted. My mind was turning to mush. Outside the window, it was still pitch black, a thick, inky darkness that the rising sun couldn't penetrate. Leo, come on. What are you waiting for? We have to go get the Christmas groceries. My mom nudged my arm. I was standing in our living room, feeling dazed like I'd forgotten something important. Mom was already by the door with her coat on, waiting impatiently. I mumbled an okay and followed her out. Dad was driving, and Mom was in the passenger seat, both of them excitedly discussing what to buy. I sat in the back, watching the festive streets go by. Wreaths hung from every lamppost, and colorful lights were strung up in the trees. The mall was packed. Holiday sale signs were everywhere. Cheerful Christmas music played over the speakers. Shoppers bustled in and out, their arms full of bags. The festive atmosphere was infectious, and I started to feel happy. Mom grabbed a shopping cart and charged ahead, with Dad right behind her. "Get whatever you want for your stocking," she called back to me before disappearing into the crowd. I wandered slowly behind them, looking around. The mall was lively, but something felt off. After passing a few more stores and watching several people, I figured it out. Every single person in the mall, the shoppers, the cashiers, the security guards, was smiling. It was the exact same smile. A perfect copy, from the curve of the lips to the number of teeth showing. A knot of dread formed in my stomach. I started calling for my parents, hurrying toward the aisle where they were arguing over what kind of turkey to buy. When they heard me, they turned and waved, and a wave of pure, cold terror washed over me. Their faces were the same identical, plastered-on smile. Run. It was my only thought. I had to get out of there. I sprinted through the aisles of the supermarket. The cheerful holiday music now sounded bizarre and threatening. It was like I had triggered something. All the shoppers stopped what they were doing and began to walk toward me. I could feel them closing in from all sides. The familiar store had become a labyrinth with no exit. The smiling faces got closer and closer. I tried to push through them, but they swarmed me like a tide, backing me into a corner against a shelf. On instinct, I started grabbing cans and jars off the shelf and hurling them into the crowd. In the chaos, I felt someone grabbing my arm, shaking me hard. Leo, what's wrong? Honey, wake up. It was my mom, shaking my arm, her face etched with worry. I snapped out of it. I was back in the mall. The shoppers were all going about their business, same as before. It was like I had imagined the whole thing. Shattered jars and cans littered the floor around me. My dad was talking to a store manager, arranging to pay for the damages. My mom was trying to comfort me, asking if I was just stressed out from work. My head started to throb. The noise of the shoppers and the constant Christmas music was making my brain buzz. Seeing how pale I was, my parents decided to take me home. In the car, the radio was playing Andy Williams. The signal was fuzzy, and the song was interspersed with static. My headache got worse and worse, until I finally collapsed onto the back seat, clutching my head in agony. The pain didn't subside until we got home. Over the next few days, the headaches came and went, always triggered by hearing a Christmas song. I told my parents, but they just said it was all in my head. Soon it was Christmas Eve. The three of us were sitting around the dinner table, eating and watching a marathon of old Christmas specials on TV. The food smelled amazing, a rich, savory aroma that seemed strangely familiar. The specials were kind of boring. I didn't understand why we weren't watching something new. But my parents were glued to the screen, completely engrossed. And now, a holiday classic from the one and only Andy Williams, the announcer on the TV said. Andy Williams appeared on screen in a festive sweater, singing, "It's the most wonderful time of the year," on a stage filled with fake snow and dancers. My head started pounding again, the pain more intense than ever, like something was trying to claw its way out of my skull. My parents' faces began to blur. They were smiling at me, the same empty, identical smile from them all. I desperately fumbled for my phone to call 911, but there was no signal. My vision was fading. I collapsed to the floor. Boom! Fireworks exploded outside, painting the black sky with color. I remembered something, a fragment of thought, but it vanished before I could grasp it. My parents knelt beside me, their mouths moving. "Just stay with us, Leo. Stay here." My consciousness was dissolving. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. We are now arriving at our final destination. The train glided into the station. A lone young man stepped out of the car onto the vast, empty platform. Ding! Congratulations, host. You have cleared the instance and completed the main objective. Reward: 1 star. Ding! Congratulations, host. You have completed secondary objective 1. Trigger all rules. Reward. 1 star ding. Host has failed to complete secondary objective 2. Keep Leo Wallace alive. No stars awarded. A mechanical voice echoed in the air. Ethan Cole let out a roar of frustration. Are you ing kidding me? This NPC is the worst. How can you fall for such a simple trap? I've replayed this 3 times already just to get a perfect score. Host requires 1 more star to unlock the next instance. Do you wish to re-challenge this instance? Yes. 3rd time's the charm. This is my 4th damn attempt. Loading instance. The Christmas Express. Loading complete. We wish you a pleasant journey. A blinding flash of light, and the platform was empty again. 11. I sat in my window seat, waiting for the train to depart. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was staring at me. I turned my head. The gaze was coming from a guy across the aisle. He had a blank expression on his face, but I could see a flicker of pure rage in his eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Night Owl, train 368. This train is now departing.